the Honorable Mr. Justice Chandrachud, the Chief Justice of India, the Honorable Justice Bhushan Gavai, the Judge Supreme Court of India, the Honorable Justice Abhay Oak, Judge Supreme Court of India, the Honorable Justice Prasanna Varare, Judge Supreme Court of India, the Honorable Justice Nitin Samre, Senior Judge at Nagpur, and maybe I should have said this name first, Sri Atul Pandey, the President of the High Court Bar, this is your function. Shri Jaltare, the Secretary of the Bar, the members of the Bar Association, distinguished judges of the Bombay High Court, former judges, former Chief Justices, distinguished colleagues from the bar, members of the bar, ladies and gentlemen. It is always difficult for me to speak in Nagpur because it's difficult to stop taking names. One row after the other, I happily seem to know all of them. I forgot the Advocate General Maharashtra also, and the former Advocates General, Sri Ane and Gilda are also here, and many others. This is a privilege to be here, a singular privilege, because I was also here at the Platinum Jubilee celebrations of the High Court, of this Bar Association. Yes, at the same venue. And I think maybe Justice Chandrachud, though was a judge, was not here. Lordship, you were not here. And I called him Lordship not because of any distance, but by trying to remove the distance. And I must tell you something very interesting, because this also has something to do with a terrific problem at the bar, namely about elevations and about becoming a judge. After 3 names from Bombay, Ajay Khanvilkar, Justice Ajay Khanvilkar, Lordship Chandrachud, and mine had been hanging fire for 2.5 years. One day in the regular phone call routine which we had established, I told Lordship Chandrachud, then I used to call him Dhananjay or Dhan. I said, this is too much. So he came up with a bright idea, why don't we withdraw our consent? So I said, yeah, that's a very good idea. And I said, we will write a letter, you and I, separately to the Chief Justice Bombay, that was Justice Sabarwal. And we both decided to write that letter, and we wrote that letter. And on one of the phone calls he said, but I will call you Lordship from now. And I said, I will also call you Lordship from now, that we are not going to be judges. So this name is something which we have used because we were not going to be judges, not because we were judges. And again, it was in this building that I went to Justice Sabarwal's chamber at Justice Chandrachud's prodding. He said, go and meet him and see what he's saying. As he received the letter, I went to Justice Sabarwal and I said, Chief, I am here on behalf of Mr. Dhananjay Chandrachud and myself, and to tell you that we have withdrawn our consent for being judges of the High Court. And he said, yes, I know, I've tore up both the letters, And is there anything else you want to tell me? So, the occasion and his presence here brings back many, many memories, and so does this place, this building. You know, when the Chief Justice, who was present here at the inauguration of the building, told the Viceroy of India, Lord Linlithgow, that this architect is a poet, and I invite Your Excellency to look upon his poem in stone. It is one of the most beautiful buildings in the country, and the Nagpur High Court Bar has been housed here for a long time. And I'm glad to be here in the presence of all the distinguished judges, almost all friends, and the Chief Justice of the Bombay High Court. There is something, it's by way of a suggestion to the High Court Bar Association, because I was looking up some things for this occasion, and I realized that you should, on an occasion like this, we should have the participation of many of the bar associations of Madhya Pradesh, because the High Court Bar Association, when it was formed, covered those areas as well. Only, I understand it will become a burden, but it's worth discharging. The Judicial Commissioners Court, and I won't go into details, many people have spoken about it, became the highest judicial authority in 1886. And I want to say something which is very close to my heart, has always been. And I've always said this about the Nagpur Bar wherever I have spoken, that the bar has been very eclectic. Its leaders came from all regions, all communities of India. We had Sir Bipin Krishna Bose, M.B. Kinkhede, J. Mitra, P.S. Kotwal, who was Barrister Kotwal, who was the father of Justice S.P. Kotwal, Chief Justice Bombay, R.N. Mudhorkar, the father of J.R. Mudhorkar from Amravati, Sir Bhavani Shankar Niyogi, Vivian Bose, the son of Bipin Krishna Bose, Nisar Ali, and so many others. I believe it is a tradition and a character which we must all maintain, because this has been the origin of the bar. The bar shifted in 1940 to this new building, and the first case that was decided had a very interesting question of law. Whether a decree passed by a court in British India, that is Wardha, could be executed in respect of foreign property in a foreign territory, that is Yavatmal. And this was a serious question, and it was debated in the first case. That is because Yavatmal, Akola, Buldana and Amravati were considered foreign territories because they came from the Nizam on lease to the Britishers, and they're not part of Nagpur ever. In fact, Nagpur got included into the idea of Vidarbha much later. And very interestingly, when I see Shri Hari Ane here, it reminds me that, and Mukesh Samat, it reminds me that the movement for a separate Vidarbha began because the people in Vidarbha were afraid that the 4 districts would go back to the Nizam, and not because Bombay or Maharashtra was in question at all. To prevent these 4 districts from going back to the Nizam after the lapsing of sovereignty that the Vidarbha movement began and asserted the existence of a separate Vidarbha. Anyway, that was the first case. Since then, the bar, through its advocates and the judges who were appointed from it, has been concerned with some really stunning cases. There's no time to go into them. But the Narayan Rao Vaidya sedition case, the Chimur Ashti case, in which people convicted of murder suddenly found that after independence they were heroes and were released, with Justice Hidayatullah as Advocate General then. Then a famous case which I first time heard Justice J.S. Verma narrate, that is a case in which Justice Vivian Bose treated a letter from the prison as a petition and hauled up the superintendent of prisons and told him that he will proceed for contempt against him because he withheld a letter from the prisoner. When the superintendent who was in court, Colonel Jathar, said that this is a letter, it's not a petition, he said a letter is a petition. And from this case onward, we are going to treat, the Nagpur High Court is going to treat a letter addressed to the Chief Justice from prison as a petition. This, I believe, is the beginning of the epistolary jurisdiction. Of course, J.R. Mudholkar spoke about, laid down the foundation of the basic structure doctrine. In Sajjan Singh's case, A.P. Sen asserted the right of the court to examine the validity of a detention during emergency. And interestingly, the Mathura rape case, which was decided in Justice Sirpurkar's home area, the bench, the judgment of the Nagpur bench, when it was reversed by the Supreme Court, created such a furor in the country that it gave rise to Section 114 of the Evidence Act, which in effect says that if somebody alleges consent in a rape case, then it is he who has to prove the consent. And many others which I will not go into today. The list of eminent judges and advocates is a long one, and it would be better if I do not begin it. One thing I'd like to point out, and that is the first thing I learned, that there are two things which have been hallmarks of the Nagpur Bar. One is great learning, and the other is fearlessness and the nurturing of young advocates. The two things I want to mention in the passing, because I believe they've had a great socio-legal impact because of what the members of the bar did. One is that in 1922, and this is a subject which I am sure dear to Lordship's heart, you know, there was the Regina Guha case from Calcutta, where the Calcutta High Court in effect held that women could pass an LLB examination, but they could not be registered as legal practitioners. Interestingly, the Calcutta High Court said that a woman is certainly a person within the meaning of the word in the Act because of the General Clauses Act. Person includes male and female. But still, we cannot give the right to be enrolled as a legal practitioner because, and this is a very interesting reason, because it has never been done before. When the matter was, there was a legislation pending in the Central Legislative Assembly, and the bill that was being tabled was the inclusion of women in the electoral votes in India, electoral rolls in India. Sir Hari Singh Gaur got up and made the following proposal as an amendment. And that amendment was, and the government be further pleased to remove the sex bar held to disqualify women from enrollment as legal practitioners in the courts of this country. It is purely the only reason why, or at least the beginning of why women could practice, was Dr. Sir Hari Singh Gaur's commitment to the principle of equality. Another great member of the bar who had an immense social impact and became the first Chief Justice of the Nagpur High Court was Sir Bhavani Shankar Niyogi, who was elected chairman of the Municipal Committee of Nagpur, that is the present mayor, I suppose. And he was a radical humanist, as Lordship like Rane. Tarkunde, Rane, Jagedar, yes. So, Sir Bhavani Shankar was a radical humanist. And Dr. Ambedkar and Sir Bhavani Shankar Niyogi were so close on their outlooks at the world that Dr. Ambedkar invited Bhavani Shankar Niyogi to preside over the massive function for conversion of Harijans to Buddhism in 1956. Sir Bhavani Shankar Niyogi did many other things, but his progressive outlook, I'm talking of those days, I'm sure had a tremendous impact on society. But it often is sidelined in the world of social media and WhatsApp these days. He lived to become 100 years old and never missed an evening walk. The bar has produced innumerable judges, lawyers, also Chief Justices of the states and India, governors, members of the Viceroy's Executive Council, ministers, and the only Chief Justice of India who acted as President of India and was also elected Vice President of India. I am sure the tradition will continue, for on our heels a fresh perfection treads, a power, and I want Justice Gavai to listen to this for a while. No, because I'm ending. It has something to do with the future. And it says, for on our heels a fresh perfection treads, a power more strong in beauty, born of us and fated to excel us. Thank you. Jai Hind.